Okay, hi, this is Bill Hartzer, and this is the Digital Marketing with Bill Hartzer podcast for June 18th, 2020. You do have the pleasure of having Scott Fish from 32 Digital here uh, talking with me this afternoon. We're going to talk a little bit about building trust, talking about remarketing, as well as building a culture around SEO. So welcome, Scott. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and how long you've been doing SEO.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. So I live in the Vancouver, Washington, Portland, Oregon area, right on the border.
Yep.
And I have a 10-month-old baby, which has been a lot of fun in the last few
Yep.
months,
Sure.
being home with him for COVID. And, I started SEO really when I was in college. I started skipping my marketing classes instead of, learning about billboard, TV, and radio advertising. I was learning about digital marketing, and that was back in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed building websites back then, and of course, a lot of the things that applied back then in terms of SEO is still relevant today. But yeah, it used to be the wild, wild west, and I remember those days, and they were a lot of fun. So that's kind of where I got started, and I've turned it into a career. Now I run my digital marketing agency, 32 Degrees Digital, and I've been doing that for about 6 years, and tend to work with a lot of people-focused businesses, tourism and hospitality, hotels, wineries, some of the
Sure.
things to do businesses. So I really like, being a technical expert and also being able to work with people. And that's a lot of fun.
So I know you've been doing SEO, actually probably before it was even called SEO. It was, called different things, internet marketing and search engine marketing and then, and SEO and so forth. And so, as you were building sites, do you remember any kind of, the platforms or any kind of, tools that you were using back in the 90s? I know that I did specifically use Notepad and kind of custom, uh, basically, created each page, in HTML code. But right, certainly that was a lot well before we had WordPress, where we could just basically build up install WordPress on a server and then just basically choose a theme and get the site up and running.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Just a few weekends ago, I was cleaning up my garage and I found several CDs that had some of my original website content on them. And
Sure.
I did not know what a CMS was back then and how to really
Yep.
use it. And I think I remember even using early versions of Dreamweaver or PageMaker, and also a lot of Notepad. You know, I think early on having that technical experience with coding was good. Obviously today you don't necessarily need a lot of that unless you're a very technical SEO. A lot of the things that we did back in the day, there's now tools, there's plugins, there's things that are kind of built into a WordPress site or a Drupal site, just in its inherent nature. So I think it's important for if you're kind of new to the industry and 4 or 5 years out of college, I think it is important to understand some of those original things that mattered back in the day, because a lot of what we do today is based around that. Looking at something like schema, that's really a
Sure.
structured data format of certain types of content, and it's simplified and it's understood and easily crawlable by search engines. And that was something that mattered 20 years ago. And we're doing it today, and it's just become part of what we're working on. So yeah, that's a really good question, and some of the basics are just as important today as they were 20 years ago.
Yeah, especially when we're trying to, we're at a situation where actually a lot of the CMSs end up, on the web development side, it's easy to get a lot of extra code in there. And we go back and, look at or I go back and look at, the raw HTML code that I was doing. And certainly it would load very quickly right now, especially on, with today's internet speeds and so forth that we're seeing. And that the fact that now we're actually trying to do the opposite, which before we were trying to add things to the pages, so they would look better and so forth, and add to the code. But now we're kind of going the opposite way, where we have so much code bloat and CSS files and that are loaded that are not even used on the page, and and all sorts of plugins and extra code that now, if you understand the basics and understand a basic HTML code page, then we can realize and start to understand what really is necessary to load on that page and what's not necessary to load. And then we figure out, then we look back at, just the history of HTML and creating websites and so forth. And then I look back at all the domains and all the, basically all the bad domain names, with multiple hyphens in them that I had, that, of websites that I built. And we think it brings me back to around the history, and a website that's been around for 20 years has built up history and hopefully some trust by getting some natural links if it was a decent website or on a topic that would naturally get links. And so yeah, it definitely takes time to build up trust and authority. So nowadays, if we have a new site, what are some ways that a brand new site, even launched maybe last week, for example, how does that website get some trust and authority, to start ranking, in the search results?
Yeah. Well, Google was built on the same concept as a lot of academia journals and publications. It's citations. The
Sure.
more articles that cite your academic article in the Journal of Medicine, the better. You get more trust that way. So Google's
Yep.
took that. They were really the first ones to take that concept and say, okay, we're going to look at outside links. And so, building trust over years, it takes time, and there's some thought around older domains being more trustworthy, the .edu domains, .gov domains, different, even
Sure.
a .org, is maybe a little more trustworthy. But it's not the words or the label or the whatever that is more trustworthy. It's really that those domains tend to have older, trusted links from other places, and a lot of them that are more aged. And so, if you're a new business, that would be a good place to start, is to say, what neighborhood can I be a part of that's going to help boost me in the rankings? And by neighborhood, I mean, let's look at common competitors' links that they have pointing to them that are maybe a little bit older, that you can then be included within. And one of the tools that's out there, and SEO Moz has this tool, there's others that are out there too, is the link intersect tool, where you could take
Sure.
the top 3 or 4 sites for a keyword and look at what their common links are, and start doing just start knocking off those link
Yep.
building opportunities as they come. And you don't have to get 100 of those links. You don't even have to get 10, but you maybe need 3 or 4 to be included in that neighborhood, and be part of that conversation in Google's eyes, for that keyword or that topic.
Yeah, and also I know that there's a guy named Jason who has actually curated or continues to curate a list of all of the domains that or websites that have been mentioned in the knowledge graph. And I know that Google uses the knowledge graph, as well as Bing and even Facebook now, starting to kind of maybe use the knowledge graph. And basically, those are websites that a list of websites that we know are trusted, and they're trusted enough to be a part of the the knowledge graph, and knowledge graph being made up of all these websites that provide trusted information. And so if we have a list, certainly there are certain trusted websites that are, I would say, more general category, like Wikipedia, Crunchbase, a few of these that may be difficult to get a link on, maybe be maybe a little easier to get listed. So they're also, as well as different industry sites, news websites, and so forth. So it's interesting, to start to take a look at that list, and I can certainly provide that particular list as well.
Yeah, that's great.
Sites.
I'll give one example here that I think is worth taking a look at too. Is
Sure.
I work in the hospitality space, and have worked with a lot of universities, and I just finished a project with Bowling Green, BGSU universities, their conference center. and they have a whole kind of micro site on the main website
Sure.
for the university, and they list out some of the things to do in the area. So if you're going to if you want to plan a conference and stay on the university and use their housing and their facilities, they have pages on their site that say, here's the restaurants that you should go check out. Here's the things to do that you can go do. And guess what? A lot of those are just small businesses, but they have a great link from a university website. And so that's an area that I think is underutilized. I mean, obviously a lot of very experienced people in SEO are probably doing that or have done that already. But if you're a new business or you're starting out with a new client, and you're looking for some of those easy wins, looking at the places that would love to include you as a resource that are a little bit higher level, like a university, like a hotel. Wouldn't it be great to have your local Marriott link to you as a place to check out when people are visiting?
Sure.
And at the end of the day, that's relationship building. It's not link building. It's really relationship building and reaching out to those people directly and kind of pitching your reason of why they should include you. And they may not ask for anything back because they're actually getting a value, for their visitors to the site. They're getting a great place to send people to check out. So
Yeah, and
I
if it's
definitely
done
like
right, I
those
mean, you'll
ways.
get a link. You'll get the SEO value, but honestly, it comes down to that someone is, at going to set up or have a conference at the Bowling Green, location. They'll actually need that information, so they will actually, it will not only just people will get click, you'll get clicks, and you will get, you'll actually maybe even get direct business from it. And so, and then also obviously people who then see that and, may take that list or may take your link and put it on another website. And so it's kind of naturally happens, rather than just saying, okay, let's just take a new site's URL and just spam it out there on all the Web 2.0, type of bookmarking links and sites that we can get. Uh, it only actually, in some cases, I have a client that we really have not done much link building at all. And in fact, there's really, if you look at their links, there's just, local company or local business, and they don't have many, but they, because of the content and because of the site, and it loads quickly, and it's my belief that it ranks well. But they do have a few really good solid local links.
That's great. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about remarketing. One of the things that I like to do is for businesses that I'm working with is actually ask them for their current list of customers and take that customer list. If they have emails, names, emails, phone numbers, and upload that into Facebook and create a lookalike audience, as well as, and that lookalike audience was created basically based on the demographics and the information. Certainly, then we have a customer list, and that we can remarket to, and say, and or give a special offer to current customers and so forth, and have a certain audience. But tell me a little bit about, the benefits of remarketing and actually paying attention to that.
Yeah, remarketing, and I'll just use Facebook as an example for remarketing. One of the things about Facebook is that you know people's location, interest that they might have,
Yep.
income levels, but they're not raising their hand saying, "I need your service or your product." And
Sure.
that's completely the opposite of what you might find in Google Ads. In Google Ads, you have someone searching for a keyword. The search intent is there. We know what they're looking for, maybe a
Yep.
price point, a size, a color, or something like that. So remarketing is really that first kind of jump into, like, how do we find the right person that might be interested? They're more likely to be interested than just a general person that we're going to target with an ad. And there are some industries that remarketing is critical in, and you really have to use it, because you don't know how to reach those people in any other way. I have client I've worked with for a couple of years that's in the senior care facility side of business, and
Sure.
unfortunately, some of their customers pass away over years. And so, how do you reach people who are potentially having either a spouse or a parent that's a little bit older and needs some extra help around their house? Using their remarketing list, their customer list, at least gives us a good understanding of income level, and whether they're a parent or not,
Yep.
whether they have kids, the interest that they might have. It gives us at least a big first step into reaching the right people. Otherwise, we're just throwing away money into the wind because we don't have an idea of whether someone actually needs our service or not.
Sure. So a little bit, we were talking earlier about, building a culture around SEO and helping our clients, help us, and under, by giving us, feeding some information. So tell me a little bit about how you deal with, building a culture around SEO.
Yeah, sure. So, I think building a culture around SEO, whether you're in-house or whether you're an independent contractor or you work at an agency, a lot of times there's not a lot of understanding about what you do and what the value you bring is to the business. And so building a culture around SEO helps alleviate that and can help you get budget and can help you keep a client longer.
Sure.
And so there's kind of three main areas that I like to look at when I talk about building culture. One is creating some structure and identifying those leaders. Two
Okay.
is sharing data and creating some visibility. And three is educating and motivating the team members. And the structure, the first piece, the structure and identifying leaders, I think is really important because you do have different people that you're working with that are in different roles that have different things that they need to understand. A first group is kind of those non-marketing roles. The thing they care about is, why do these strategies matter? How does this help their job, perform better?
Sure.
How does this help drive revenue? And understanding ways to talk with them about that is good. Then you kind of get into the customer service, the frontline team, the sales team. They're your feedback loop. They're a great person to tap for additional content. They're the ones that are getting asked questions by customers, either current or potential customers. And
Yep.
something that I jokingly but seriously say to all my new clients, that has a sales team, is say, hey, let's go raid your sales team's emails and let's find the things that they're answering a lot of frequently, and let's turn that into content that they can either send out as a document, or maybe it's a blog post that they can reference. There's a lot of great content opportunities in kind of the internal customer service or sales teams. And then another group is the IT team. Obviously IT teams can be very well versed in SEO, and sometimes they have no clue what they're doing because they're just keeping something alive, online, some tool or the
Sure.
website. So getting them on board with what you're trying to do from an SEO perspective will save a lot of headache and time in the long run. So, and then the last two groups that I kind of put in here that are important are the tactical marketing team members and the department leaders. Creating some reporting and planning and measuring and just education for those folks is really important, so they understand what direction you're headed in, and building out some reporting tools that help them understand that a little bit better is a great idea. So that's kind of the creating structure and identifying leaders. The second one is sharing data and creating visibility, and this could come in the form of quarterly SEO digital marketing work sessions with people outside of your department, or people that you're not normally working with in the client side of things, and giving them some different ways to see data. It could be a custom Google dashboard. It could be a Google Data Studio view that is relevant to them. We all know this on the SEO side. Reporting too much technical data is detrimental because people just gloss over and don't care about it, or put much stock into it. So you have to find how do you communicate something technical to somebody who's non-technical, and that could be a CEO or a board or department head. And it's a challenge, and there's some good ways to do that. So that's kind of the sharing data and creating visibility. And then the last one is just education and motivating team members. I think it's important that if you're doing SEO, if you have involved other people from the other areas of the business, customer service, sales, executives, that kind of thing, they're going to want to know that what they're contributing is making a difference. And that feedback loop of, hey, you helped with this content to write this blog post, and now 3 months later, it's our top blog post in terms of, organic
Sure.
driven content, or organically driven traffic. And, them seeing that, in the raw, in the data, is going to promote that idea of them giving you more content, and they'll probably start doing it more regularly. So I think, just sharing the information, educating people, and just making a good understanding of the structure and the leaders that are going to kind of help promote the SEO culture is really important.
Yeah, so you mentioned, the fact that of content and kind of education and understanding, any questions or any topics or any information that is duplicated, essentially. You talk to say a salesperson or talk to any support or any areas like that of an organization, you'll find that there are probably going to be frequently asked questions. And so that's one area that of content, if we can identify those areas, it'll actually help if we can kind of pre-qualify, or we can take that information and put that online, put that on the website, put it in frequently asked questions, put it in a knowledge base, put it in the support area. And there are certain areas that I've seen certain websites that, for example, I'll mention Cloudflare, in the fact that they do have good support, but they have identified already um, areas that people ask or frequently ask. They're essentially frequently asked questions. And so when you go to the support area, you start to need support. Well, that content they've already written, and they've already written these tutorials. They've already written information, and to help educate their customers, or even potential customers as well, ahead of time, so that then when they actually do get to support person, it's something that hopefully that has already been that's different than what they've already covered in the support documents. But at the same time, let's talk, if we're just talking about pre-qualifying a potential customer, um, for example, just there are certain things you can do if you're always getting leads that where your customers or your potential customers can't even afford your services. Let's say they have to spend $1,000 or more, or and you're getting people who are filling out a form wanting to be a customer, but they only think it's going to be $100 for your service. Well, then obviously ahead of time, pre-qualifying them, if that's something that's a pain point for the salespeople, then there's certainly things you can do. So it's that conversation. We come down to SEO is not necessarily just going in Notepad and creating and writing a key, putting keywords and title tags and optimizing a page. SEO now is so much more. It's about content. It's about, understanding, understanding the potential customers, understanding those pain points of the salespeople to help them do their jobs and have the whole online experience run as smoothly as possible, so that we can kind of optimize optimize not just search engine traffic, but optimize the whole digital marketing experience.
Yeah, no, yeah, I totally agree. And to kind of tie some of this together, the trust building piece, having links that are useful for people, it helps your SEO, but it also is providing value. And the same thing, here around with the remarketing side, there's a reason why email has resurged. It's because we have very targeted email campaigns. It's not a blast
Sure.
anymore. People are getting things that are valuable to them. And so, remarketing helps provide people things that they're really actually potentially interested in seeing. They just don't know about they might not know that they need it yet. And then going back to the culture side of things, you're providing value, within the company. You're helping create more value, and being a spoke, and that can have, this entire wheel being built around SEO. So all the three things that we talked about today, really at the end of the day, comes around building value, either for your customers in their search process, or their discovery process, or within your organization.
Sure. Well, we're just about out of time. So thanks again, Scott, for spending some time with me this afternoon, talking about building trust and remarketing, and overall just building a culture of SEO with with not only your own internal digital marketing team, but also with the client as well. So how do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my business is 32 Degrees Digital. You can find us at 32digital.com.
Okay,
I tried
great.
to get 32degrees.com, but that is a clothing company, unfortunately.
Sure.
That would be a great domain to have. But 32degreesdigital.com, you can email me, Scott at 32digital.com. And, I'm at a lot of SEO conferences. I'm in the Portland area, so we have SEM PDX, which is a big
Yep.
conference every year. So, feel free to reach out to me via email, and I'd love to see you either in person or at a conference virtually over the next year. Feel free to come up and say hi.
All right, sounds great. Again, it's Scott Fish from 32 Digital, 32digital.com. Thanks again, Scott. This has been the Digital Marketing Podcast with Bill Hartzer for June 18th, 2020. Thanks again, Scott, for hanging out with me this afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you.